Hi, my name is Kevin Driscoll, and let me show you how to field strip the M16 and AR-15 family of rifles. Today this one is represented by my Mark 12 Special Purpose Rifle. The good news is that all variants field strip and assemble the same. Let me start you with a scenario. You're on convoy duty in central Afghanistan when you come under fire from enemy forces. You clear the vehicle, prepare to engage, and you hear the most fearful sound that any soldier can ever hear, a click when you expect a bang. This is because you didn't properly field strip your rifle to clean it and inspect it. And that's just why we do this, so that we can clean the rifle and inspect any of the internal parts for wear or damage. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing is, the only tool you should really need is a 5.56 cartridge to use as a punch. If you have punches handy, feel free to use them. You may also want to have a rag on hand because this does get a little messy. So let's go ahead and roll up our sleeves and get started. First, we want to make sure that the weapon is clear. Placing the weapon on safe, remove a magazine if you have one in place, lock the bolt to the rear. This way you can visually inspect your chamber to ensure that there is not a stuck cartridge. Once that's done, simply let the bolt go home. At this point, pick it up, pushing on the rear takedown pin, pivot the upper and lower receivers apart, and depress the front takedown pin. And now you've separated your lower and your upper receiver. If your variant has removable handguards, at this time you can go and remove them. This one does not. Also, if you have a removable carry handle, you can remove that for inspection and cleaning as well. So now that we've done that, let's go and turn this over. Pull on the charging handle, pulling the bolt carrier group and the charging handle to the rear. Pull out the bolt carrier assembly and your charging handle. Set the charging handle aside. That's it for our upper receiver for now. Next, we want to move on to our bolt carrier group, and I'll show you how to field strip that now. Now let's field strip our bolt carrier assembly. Pick your carrier up and push the bolt to the rear or locked position. Then take your 5.56 cartridge, pushing out the firing pin retaining pin from the right hand side till you can reach it in the left detent. Pull the firing pin retaining pin out, set it aside. Now you can just rotate your bolt carrier group 90 degrees. Your firing pin should fall right out. If it doesn't, nothing to concern yourself with, just give it a good tap. At this point, you want to take your bolt cam pin, rotate it 1/4 turn, and you can simply remove it. Set it aside. Now you can pull your bolt from your bolt carrier group, set your carrier aside. Now we've got the bolt. Take your firing pin and push the extractor pin out till you can get to it. Sometimes it can be a little tricky. There's our extractor pin, and now we've removed our extractor. That's it for disassembling the bolt carrier assembly. Now we'll move on to the buffer and action spring. Now that we've field stripped our bolt carrier assembly, let's remove the buffer and the action spring from the lower receiver. Be sure you maintain constant pressure with your index finger on the buffer so that it does not strike you in the face when you remove it. Take your cartridge and depress the retaining pin until you can slowly ride the buffer and the action spring out of the buffer tube. And that's it for disassembly of this rifle. Now in our next segment we'll actually talk about cleaning and the inspection of all of the components. For now, let's just go ahead and reassemble the rifle. Take your buffer and your action spring, replace them into the buffer tube, and with simple index finger pressure, push the buffer beyond the pin, and you're done with the lower receiver. Next, take your bolt and your extractor, put the extractor in its slot, and replace the extractor pin. You want to be sure that it sits flush on both sides. This may take a little finger pressure, but you will get it done. Now there's a hole that runs through the middle of the bolt. On one end, there's a slight detent that faces the forward end of the bolt. When placing the bolt in the carrier, you want to ensure that that is facing downward. Insert the bolt until you can see the top hole in the slot. Replace your bolt cam pin and rotate the cam pin 90 degrees. Now you want to pull the bolt forward until it's in the unlocked position. In your left hand, cover the holes in the bolt carrier, invert it, take your firing pin, simply drop it in the hole, make sure it sits flush, take your firing pin retaining pin, insert it into the detent on the left side of the bolt until it sits flush. That's it for the carrier assembly. Now you can take your your upper receiver, take your charging handle, set it in place till it drops into the hole, take your bolt carrier assembly, place it in the slot on the charging handle, and push it slowly into the upper receiver. When you set these flush, now you can simply push it home and make sure that everything is not falling out. All you have to do is turn your upper receiver over, take your lower receiver, join the join the two holes in the front takedown pin. You may have to rotate the rifle some to get that to set. Now that you've got that in place, simply rotate the two receivers together, and now you can reset the rear takedown pin. Now that you've fully assembled your rifle, the most important thing to do is function test it. With the weapon on safe, charge the rifle and depress the trigger. The trigger should not fire. Put the rifle on fire, depress the trigger, and the rifle should fire. Charge the rifle again. Now, if your rifle happens to have a 3-round selector switch or a full auto, you would want to rotate to that position and again test fire to make sure whether or not it fires. Charge the rifle again, put the weapon back on safe, and depress the trigger. It should not fire. Now that you've done that, you've fully function tested your rifle, you're good to go. I hope I've shown you why it's important to field strip your rifle to be able to clean it and inspect it, and the importance of doing a function test at the end. My name is Kevin Driscoll. Thank you very much.